all this chatter in my brain, right? And just listening into that. Imagine going to the center of a city and just hearing all this jabber and self-talk all the day, all the time. And I don't know people's thoughts. Maybe it's too much, I'm thinking.
But maybe teleporting is something for you.
Teleporting. That would be insane.
This one is nice. Make people do whatever I want.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
this webinar is definitely for you, man. This is what I love it. Perfect.
Creative power product teams. Excellent. Positive thinking.
Okay, mind read with an off-on button. I love it.
Right.
Okay.
That's smart.
This guy works with recruiting, I can tell.
Yep.
Yeah.
25 people in the house. Welcome to all of you. Let's get started. Right, Matthias?
Let's get started. I'm ready to go. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Okay.
Let's go.
So warm welcome to this webinar of talking about empowered product teams. And I'm Marcus, and this is Matthias. We're going to quickly introduce ourselves in the next couple of slides. But the ambition with this webinar is to explain what empowered product teams mean and give some examples, some tangible examples, and also some success stories relating to transforming to empowered product teams.
Yeah, and also, why is this? What do we mean by it? Why is it? Why should we care? Why should anybody care about this?
Yeah.
So that's what we're
very relevant question.
Yes.
Yeah. Some housekeeping before we begin. So the webinar will be recorded, and we will post the recording on YouTube. So please mute your microphones throughout the webinar. You can unmute at the end, the Q&A session. If you feel like I have a question relating to a specific slide or something like that, please post them in Slido. So there's another tab called Q&A or questions that you can press, and you can add your question. So we can pull up all the questions in the end. So we can hopefully answer all of them.
Hopefully. But let's go. Let's jump right in, right?
Let's jump right in. So let's talk about it, the agenda. So we're going to talk about what is an empowered product team? Who are these people? What do they do? And then we're going to talk about a story about change. So a company that we worked with maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
To drive a change towards an empowered operating model. And then we're going to talk about leading with context, not control, and why that's really important in an empowered context. And then we're going to talk about discovery and delivery, how to connect these often disconnected worlds in product development.
Yeah. So things like what are the skills? What do that people actually have to do in these product teams in order to research and understand customer needs, customer problems, and try to verify if different solution ideas might be the right thing to do, and see if we can do those things as early as possible.
Yeah.
And after that, we'll reconnect with some of the things we've covered up to then, and just kind of say, hey, here's some key themes that we've covered, but actually just kind of highlight them, and then finish up with some ideas. So what you guys could do just to kind of take some steps, maybe tomorrow or next week.
Exactly. What can you do tomorrow? So hopefully we can kind of address that expectation.
Yeah. And finally, we'll cover another case study, just an example of a change journey, transformation, an organization that wasn't here, but went there, and their experience from doing
that
this.
They took, what they gained from that experience. And then we're going to end with the Q&A session.
Yeah.
So be about 15-minute presentation with some questions trickled in, and then we have about 40 minutes for questions and answers.
Yeah, we'll stay on until you guys get too tired of asking questions. Hopefully, we think we can outlast you guys. We'll see.
Let's see. All right, let's get going. So who are we? I'm Marcus Castleforce. I'm a product partner at Crisp. So I help companies with product discovery, product management, product strategy, and things of that nature. And then Mathias Holmgren.
Yeah, also a partner at Crisp since 6 years or so. I mainly work with organizational change, transformations, typically within the areas of product. Towards product teams, I've been a part of 2 such journeys, 2 years each. And I've done some other stuff, tech stuff in the past. So yeah, but we're ready to kind of share what we have and also in the end, maybe learn from you guys. We'll see.
Absolutely. All right, so what is an empowered team? A very relevant question, right? So let's talk about the definition from Silicon Valley Product Group. And we think that that's a pretty good definition to kind of help us define what empowered teams mean. So Silicon Valley Product Group talks about 3 types of teams. So you have a delivery team, a feature team, and then an empowered team. So what is a delivery team then?
Yeah, what's a delivery team, Marcus?
Kind of said, the name says it all, right? They exist to build and ship code, right? To produce code. And they're typically provided with a backlog of stuff to do by stakeholders. And the product manager, often product owner, is basically a backlog administrator.
Yeah, the focus is really on, we want you to build this. And we just give our team tasks or small things that we need to have built. Yeah. And that's the purpose of the team. Yeah,
the composition of the team is that you have a PO, you have engineers, no design expertise in the team. And let's talk about feature team. So a little bit of a difference. So they exist to serve the business. So the business is the main stakeholder, right? And they're provided with a roadmap of features to deliver for the business. So in Q1, we're going to deliver this, in Q2, we're going to deliver that. So the product manager in this context is basically a project manager, ensuring that these things are delivered on time. But one key difference from delivery teams is that you might have a UX designer in the team.
Yeah, there's an emphasis on usability. If you're going to build a feature, it needs to kind of be able to be useful. So usually that's something that's an addition compared to delivery teams.
Yeah, so the UX designer puts together wireframes and prototypes, but the solution is very defined from the beginning, right? You have this roadmap. And now let's switch the focus to an empowered team. What's that about? So the key thing here is that an empowered team exists to serve the business, or sorry, the customer in ways that meets the need of the business, right? So the focus in the beginning of that sentence is on the customer, right? Understanding the customer, the needs, the pain points, the problems, and to connect that to business goals or business outcomes. And they're provided with problems to solve by management and leaderships. And typically you're provided with problems to solve as objectives or goals. And they're empowered to discover the right thing to build, and to design that experience, to prototype, wireframe, etc., and also to deliver. So from A to Z, they're empowered to create the solution.
Yeah, and it's important to understand the word empowered. It means that we support them in making their own decisions and coming up with their own solutions, right? It also means an accountability and an expectation of being loyal to the shared goals that we have in the organization. You need to understand why we're doing things.
Yep.
What is the goal? How does this contribute to a better business, to a better customer experience? That is a part of the responsibility that you need to embrace if you want to work in this way.
Yeah.
So a clear difference here is an empowered product team has a responsibility to understand the customer directly, to be connected with customer problems through actually meeting and talking to customers, right?
Yeah.
And usually in the feature team, Marcus, who is the customer for the feature team?
The business.
The business. So it's people who live in our building, who have some sort of ownership on the operations side of running the product as a business, and we're supposed to make them happy.
Yeah.
It's a simplified principle here, but it's significant, isn't it?
Yeah, and they see themselves as the smartest people in the room because they're senior and they've been in the business for a while, and they say like, oh, this feature is the best feature. Build it because I want to, right? And in an empowered context, you're empowering the team to discover the right solution. You're giving the team a goal, an objective to move towards. But also worth mentioning in the empowered context is that it becomes a bigger job, not just for the product manager, but for the team, because you need to understand the context, the surrounding context of the team. You need to understand customers. You need to understand where the market is moving. You need to understand the stakeholders that are close to you. So customer service, marketing. If you're working in a bank or a financial institution, it's compliance, risk, things of that nature. So that means that the complexity increases for the empowered team, but it's more fun.
It's more fun. It is more fun.
It's more fun because you're empowered to come up with the solutions.
Yeah, and since you actually understand what customers really need, you get excited when you know what you could build for them, right? So that's important. And another thing that's important, we'll talk more about the skill sets and the competencies later. I mean, there's more competencies, but a key thing to understand is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that we have decision-making closer to where the information is, right? And we need for that to become successful, that ambition, we need the team to itself be connected with the market, customers, the segments we're trying to be successful in, and the environment where the product needs successful, and the business, they need to have an awareness. So it's important for empowered team to have this extroverted engagement because they're responsible for understanding it.
Yes. So let's talk about this equation. So the equation that's key for empowered teams is that you need to combine the customer aspect, the business aspect with technology. And you need to create that equation in your team. And you need to balance these different variables or parameters. So what's right for the customer, what's right for the business, and what's right for the technology, right? And to do discovery, and more on that in a few moments. So what's the composition of an empowered team? So it's a cross-functional team with multiple competencies, adding their unique perspectives to the mix, right? You have a product manager, you have a designer, you have engineers, and then you might have other team members who are subject matter experts, depending on the product that you're working on. But it's small, it's durable over time, right? 6 months, year and a half, right? You have this clear ownership. You have mandate or accountability in terms of achieving certain goals. And you're empowered to determine the right solutions, what you see fit.
Which also means that you have a responsibility to find out if we do research, we get a solution, we build it, we put it in production. Is it making a difference?
Yeah.
That's also part of the responsibility, kind of finding out what happens later. Right?
I mean, a key thing is that you're not done when you have shipped something, right? You're done when you have measured that you're making an impact in the market. So what are the metrics showing, right? Yeah. So leaders need to switch focus. Typically leaders care about accountability, that you do stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But doing stuff should lead to moving a metric or a KPI. And that's a big mental shift. It's easy to talk about, but it's really hard to do in an organization because you're accustomed as a leader to be the smartest person in the room, right?
That's true. But I think it's also true that you're typically we see accountability as something you're responsible for this, I'm responsible for that, and so forth. And that somehow becomes primary. Mm-hmm. But here, the primary measurement is, are we creating that fruitful outcome? Do customers care? Are they willing to pay? Can we run a business on this product? Yeah. That's the primary focus. Yeah. And the accountabilities are secondary in support of the primary goals, right? Yes,
and the accountability is focused on the team, not the individual contributors in the team. And that's a key idea as well, that you're a football team or a basketball team or whatever sport you're thinking about, that's team sport. You're working together to achieve certain goals.
Yeah.
So this is a slide kind of comparing and contrasting between teams in most companies and empowered teams. Kind of key things to highlight is that it's about co-creation, it's about leaders defining the problem to solve, not the solution. It's about small incremental improvements, quickly testing things in the market, and responsible for results, and listening to customer feedback. And most importantly, I would say, is that you make decisions based on data, not on gut feeling. And you have this learning mindset in empowered teams.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about a story about change. So this is a company that we worked with 4.5 or 5 years ago, and we're going to share this story and what was the issue in the beginning and what was the result from driving this change. So a few years ago.
Yeah, let me start.
Yeah.
So this was 5-6 years ago. Yes. Marcus and me, another colleague. I got contacted with somebody I had know from before, saying, "Hey, we have a problem. We might need your help." And this was a pretty big organization, 20 countries, a couple of thousand people. They had big product organization and a lot of revenue, right? But they were trying to do something new. And the people contacting us were the head of product, CPO, and the head of tech, CTO. They say, we have a problem, or we have something we want to do together. I have my product organization, I have my tech organization, we're great, but we need to work more together, and we want to work closer to our customers. Can you help us with that? Yeah. So that's how it started, right?
And what we discovered when we started meeting teams is that there was an issue with collaboration in teams. It was basically a relay race. So let me exemplify.
Yeah.
You know, you had somebody higher up in the leadership team coming up with a brilliant idea, handing over that brilliant idea to a product manager, and then the product manager translating that idea into something smaller. And then the product owner takes that and puts it into Jira. And then you have an engineering team, an agile team working to deliver that feature. So there was, you know, handoff.
Yeah, there was a lot of handoffs. Don't get me wrong. This organization had fantastic agile teams. They were incredibly, once they got a clear objective and a task, they were fantastic. No bugs, super fast to deliver. Delivery done. But they had also a sales organization in all these countries. They were used to having the contact with the customers. They had a product organization that was kind of working together with products, together with some customers, but mostly with marketing and sales, and then product work with the engineering team. So there were different segments here, and something got lost.
Lost in translation, right?
What got lost, Marcus?
The needs of the customer, right? So it was disconnected. The teams were disconnected from customers. I think you asked a question to one of the engineering managers.
Yeah, I did.
Have
you guys met a customer? They were like, no. And they were like, yeah, we put stuff in production, but we don't really know what happens if customers are happy or if it's working for them.
Yeah.
So it was hard for them to understand if there was this impact we talked about, if that was happening or not. But they were doing a good job, but at the level of the organization that their system and organization was set up to do, right?
Yeah. So we wanted to address that. We wanted to connect teams more. And we gave them some simple recommendations, and we coached one team, starting with one team and then 2 teams and 3 teams.
Yeah, they had multiple teams, but one product team were excited. Let us try this. We want to see what it means for us.
Yeah. So we gave them 3 main recommendations, and there were a lot more nuance to this, but 3 main recommendations. And the first one was to meet customers, right?
To meet
on the regular basis.
And we're talking about directly from the people who build the product. So they had multiple teams building the same product to, I think, 3 teams or something. But they wanted to have we said, you need to have regular contact with customers, interview customers, try prototyping, these kind of things.
Yeah. And everyone should be involved in talking to customers and being in those meetings. So tech leads, engineers, some people, weren't that interested, but we'll talk about that in the next slide. And then we recommended to use a 6-week cycle, 3 sprints. So you had a cadence of talking about what we need to discover in this 6-week increment and what we need to deliver. And you start off kind of a planning day together as a team to talk about what we need to learn and what we intend to build. And the third thing, we said that discovery, the act of learning about the right thing to build, we said that should be something that you do as a joint activity, right?
Yeah, a joint activity. So big picture at the product level, some sort of regular rhythm where we talk both about discovery objectives and tasks and delivery objectives and tasks, right? Number 1. 2, every team of these 3 teams, all teams should have some sort of discovery or research activity. You must take something.
Yeah, I think that was the first step, right? We said do one thing this 6-week increment.
Yeah, so you're not allowed to only plan for delivery, right?
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
And what happened when we tried this the first time, Marcus?
Yeah, so we got some pushback. Some engineers said I never talked to a customer. I don't want to do that.
Question mark, right?
Yeah. I just want to code. Why do I need to code customers?
It was a little challenging, right? I remember when we did it the first time. Product lead, she was fantastic product manager, fantastic. Her name was Josephine. But she of course had this big list of things. We have to do all these things, and it was very well informed. But there was this big thing, right? And the team knew that this thing was there, so they were like, we have so much work to do. Should we really put the time in to research anything? I guess we're willing to try it, so let's do it. It just feels a bit uncomfortable. We haven't done it before, right? Yeah.
So for every 6-week increment, we started noticing that there were smiles in the room, more smiles in the room, more engagement around discovery activities or dissecting customer insights. And yes, we for every 6 weeks, we saw this positive trend happening in this team and other teams?
Yeah, the atmosphere really changed, right? We have some really good people that were good at prototyping, some UX. There was UX people in the organization that helped out. They were super excited, engaged,
Yeah.
and they worked together with the engineers and the product people to just kind of work these discovery items that they needed. We said, you have to take one, you have to work through it, right? And they did. And every time they did, just being exposed to the insights and say, hey, I heard a customer actually saying this, it changed the mentality, right? Gradually, right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about, us visiting the office, the canteen. When was that? Like,
yeah, that was a little bit later.
9 months later.
I mean, for the third time we've done this, like this big rhythm. The backlog was not full of this big list of things to build anymore. It was part of two things. It was stuff the team really wanted to research more because they felt that they were onto something. So we want to learn more, and we're excited about that. And then they were hyper excited about some things they were pretty certain this is going to be fantastic. We just put this into the product. This enormous list of things to build were just kind of gone, and we're just more things that we're super engaged about getting on with for the next step. And what happened was this team, they just took this and ran with it, right? We didn't really need our help, so we started to work with some other product teams. And I just ran into one of the engineers from the first product team in the canteen. They had a canteen in the bottom floor of the building, and hey, what's going on, right? Oh, it's pretty cool. It's really good. It's so different. What do you mean? What's different? Well, it's so different now. I mean, compared to when we started before, I had no idea. What the customers needed. Now I know exactly what they need, and I understand perfectly why our product is not the fit for them. But now we're changing that. And he said it with such excitement, right?
Yes, and that's the key, working in this way, exposing engineers to customer insights. It creates this engagement because you understand the purpose of the code that you're building, right?
You know it matters, right?
You know it matters.
Or that it doesn't. So let's stop thinking about it. Right?
Yeah. And Marty Kagan keeps emphasizing the concept of an empowered engineer, an engineer who understands the problem to solve, who's involved in discovery in some shape or form. And it's really key to moving towards an empowered model.
Yeah, I mean, it's key for innovation, right? And most engineers are fantastic people at solving problems.
Yes.
They're problem solvers, right? Duh. And why shouldn't we then do our absolute most to make sure they understand customer problems? That way we can get so much more benefit out of their skill sets.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a cool story. And
what happens next?
Yeah, that happens next. Time goes on and we start, the client is off and going, and we stop working with the client. But I'm talking to the CTO on the phone. It's like, it's great. We've had so much good benefits from this. And then I actually talked to the CPO on the phone, and he was even more excited. He was like, you know what, Mathias, we've closed so many more deals with this product. It's really a successful product now. So even the business side of the revenue and things had kicked in by then. And this was maybe, I don't know, more than a year after we really got going with that product team. But the traction was there now, and it was a product success in his view.
So this is good for business, but it takes time. It's a mindset shift, right?
It can take time, but it can take time.
It can take time.
We're obviously excited about this.
Yeah. So let's pose a question to the audience. What were some reasons that this company wanted to change? So going back to the story, if you don't remember completely, just write whatever pops into your head.
Yeah, or maybe what could be some reasons if you just use your imagination a bit, right?
Yeah. So please jump into Slido, and you can use the QR code on the screen, or go to slido.com and enter the code empowered teams.
Yeah, same Slido poll as when we've begun.
Exactly. We got people writing, so let's see. Thank you for participating. Teams missing their why. Yes.
But here's the thing, Marcus. If I want this team to build this thing, because I know my business needs it, I know it's not like we need to research that we need something better for customer service. Why can't I just give them that task? Do they really need to know why?
Yes.
They just do it, right? I may not be wrong,
Yeah.
but it's not the whole. It's not everything that needs to happen, right?
Yeah, it's not everything. But it's about understanding what you need to learn.
Revenue loss, motivation, closing more agreements, yeah, selling more things, right?
Yeah, they wanted more traction with their products. Absolutely.
Precision in what to deliver to market. This is a big one, right?
I like the word precision.
Precision, right? Because what's our target, right? Because we can't take all the segments. I've seen this so many times, right? You have product, I see so many opportunities. There's so many opportunities. We want to take them all, right? But what happens is you end up taking nothing because your product becomes too bland.
Yeah.
You can't make progress in all the segments at the same time. So it makes sense to target, right?
Yes. And that's a key thing when driving change in your organization, that you need to set up success measures for the change. And we did that with this customer, this client.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. So what were the success criteria for this change? So
yeah, and again, use your imagination. What do you think might have contributed to making this happen, right?
Yeah. Whatever springs to mind.
And again, we're we understand that you guys are really competent on what you're doing. So I'm sure you guys have your own reference points as well. So please share something that you think would have been useful in this case.
CTO and CPO aligned. Yes. Happy teams, happy customers.
I'll say this. The fact that the CTO and CPO were aligned was huge. They both wanted this to happen. It was just a matter of finding the path.
Yeah, that's kind of a key checkpoint for us when talking to prospect customers, is that is the CPO and the CTO aligned? Do they want to drive this change?
Yeah, whoever has skin in the game in making this a success, do they support it? Do they have the same story about why we're doing this? That's important.
Starting an honest dialogue. Excellent. Okay.
Perfect.
Last question. So when was the change completed?
Yeah.
Kind of a trick question.
When are we done?
Yeah. Never. Right.
It's a depressing answer, Marcus, isn't it?
It's a depressing answer, but like there's this yin and yang or ebb and flow or whatever you want to call it in change, right? So but you need to have base camp 1, base camp 2, base camp 3. If you just say that change is constant, it's hard to drive change because you need to have goalposts in the change.
Absolutely, you need to have goals. So our recommendation always to have, if we want to have an organizational change, what's the impact level goals? What is the capability or the situation we want to have in the future that we don't have today? And if you can hit those targets, then you can say we've completed those objectives. And of course, you can still always get better, right?
Yeah. So higher engagement or quicker time to market or moving certain product metrics. Those are the things.
Product traction, right? Things like this.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about leading with context and not control. And why is that important, Mathias?
Well, it's really about, if I talked before, we'll get to this slide in a second, right? I talked about what we're trying to do. We're trying to co-locate decision-making with the information to make the right decisions, which means we want to give the product teams and the product leaders and the engineers the responsibility and accountability to drive success, to build a product that itself organically has organic demand for this product, right? That's attractive, building a very attractive product. And if you're going to make decisions to get to that goal, something that has natural traction, that people just love to have and buy, right? Are they willing to pay for it? Can we run a business on this? Is it valuable from the customer side? Can they use it? Things like this needs to be just right. And in order for that to happen, you want the team to take on those responsibilities, right? But it also means the conventional or maybe traditional leadership needs to shift into something else.
It's a big shift.
It's a big shift.
We'll come to that. I think this slide kind of paints
that
picture.
Just a short thing here. So Gibson Biddle, who works, he was part of Netflix when they built the streaming service, right? So we're talking about highly aligned, loosely coupled. And they talked about that on Netflix as well. You've heard us on Crisp talk about it, on and on. So what we mean here is, to what end? right? To what end? Well, a great customer experience. We're going to be aligned on how we're going to get there. Something that's margin enhancing, right? How we're going to align on what that might be for our business. That's something that we can run a fantastic business on, right? Or something that's very unique, right? Something that sets us apart, right? Those are examples of what you want to be aligned on. You don't want to be aligned on build feature, right?
No.
So I just want to make that point. So for them, it was like original content that makes us stand out. It makes us different. It's hard to copy, right? And a fantastic experience of watching shows. It should be fast. It should be accessible. Any device completely smooth. If I binge watch, we should have features like that, right? So there's this idea of what to align on that I just wanted to kind of highlight.
Yeah, I mean, you're aligning on problems to solve, not solutions to build.
Exactly. And this idea how the product is going to be successful.
Yes.
So, and again, let's go back to the basics here. High alignment, low alignment on the north and up down scale here. Low autonomy, high to on the right to left. So what do we mean by these ideas? Well, if we have high alignment, meaning we're very, say you have multiple teams building one product, you say, I want you to do it like this. And we needed to do this for this customer, for example.
Yeah,
right?
on this date.
On this
in
date.
June.
We're very aligned, all the product teams, all the teams contribute, but it's really not so much autonomy, right? It's more directed from the top, right?
But you're aligned, you know what to do.
Yeah, you know what to do,
But
you know,
you don't have.
and you know how it's going to
You're not
contribute
empowered.
something, right?
Yes.
Less empowered, yeah.
Yep.
If you have low autonomy, low alignments, it's more like low initiatives, not really know what we're contributing to. These type of organizations perhaps don't last that long.
Maybe startups, you know, early stage.
Yeah, or institutions somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You can also have, and I think this is pretty common in the agile world, that we just are so good at autonomy, the team, right?
Let's emphasize on that, because this is the big change and kind of the mental shift that needs to happen, is that we're accustomed over the last 15, 20 years to build these agile teams, cross-functional teams
Yes.
that have, you know, certain responsibilities, but then you have people protecting the team, right?
Yeah, the teams become maybe kind of internally focused, right?
Yeah.
Not so interested in shared goals beyond their own personal team
and
goals.
a bit cocky, like, hey, stakeholder, don't come to us and tell us what to do. You know,
so we can do better, right?
Yeah.
So what we talk about is high alignment and autonomy means we give people problems, we give our teams objectives that has to do with customer value, customer needs, or you know, problems to solve, something that helps the business. So for example, we need to focus the next couple of weeks, or maybe this next month or the next quarter, on retention. We're losing customers. We get people to pay, but they churn.
And
right?
let's swarm on that.
Yeah.
Right?
And we need your help to figure out how to solve this. So that means we need to find out why that's happening and then build a solution, right?
Exactly. And this is where empowered teams flourish, right? They have a context, right? What is the main problem to solve? And then they create solutions based on that. So that's their brief.
Yeah. So this is the direction we want to go, right? And how do we do this? Well, we talked about aligning on why. I gave some examples from Netflix. A clear mission for the business and the organization at large, and then how is the product going to contribute to this? What's the vision for the product, and what overarching, maybe highlighted design principles do we want to put into the product? For example, for Netflix, original content, content could be one of those things, right? And then you distribute responsibilities to your teams to take responsibility for different pieces, maybe in the customer journey, or maybe different parts of the problems to solve, right?
Yeah. And that relates to team topology, right? Do we have the right people in the right place? I mean, a common way to organize teams is a value stream, right? So you give teams a specific context to solve certain problems during the customer journey, so to speak.
Well, here's where the product manager role changes, and the way you lead changes. You know, leading with context. What we mean is you need to give people the story, the why, how to connect the dots, right? So it all makes sense. There needs to be a cohesive thing, and that requires doing the homework. It's a lot of work, but you need to be able to communicate that to enable these product teams to take more ownership and find their own solutions. So when you give different objectives to each team, they can make the decisions. They can use their own initiative to drive the product forward in a way that we actually get towards our goals.
Yeah.
And not just in divergent directions, right?
I mean, to simplify things, this is one big tree diagram, right? That everything connects from the leaves to the trunk of the tree, right? That it's clear why we exist as a company, where we're heading in the future, how we're organized to make sense of our technology and the customer experience. And then we break down a product strategy with clear problems to solve over the next maybe 2, 3, 4 years. And those strategic themes, or whatever you want to call them, are broken down into objectives. And these are the problems to solve for the teams. And we're going to talk more about that in a few moments.
Yeah. And just to give you guys some examples, I think we have another slide on this. So what might it be? What might an objective look like? Yeah, well, let's frame goals as outcomes that we can take on as a challenge to do something for. So imagine you doing your monthly or maybe even quarterly planning side. What's going to be our focus for the product development of this product for the next 3 months, right? Yeah. The overarching focus. We have things we know we need to do. We'll take care of. Well, what are the big? How do we move the needle for the product this month or this quarter? It can be increase revenue per customer. Today we have a lot of customers, but each customer we just get a little bit of revenue. So we need to recruit tens and tens of thousands of customers. How can we change that? So figure that out and change it. So that's an example. So you can increase the margins in a specific segment. That would be a business, well, though a business related objectives. Or you can also have something with customer, right? Increases customer satisfaction with your favorite score, or reduce the frequency of common problems. This is why we're getting churn, Marcus, right? Mm-hmm. Or we can focus on a market or segment saying, we want 6 new satisfied customers of this type. This type we're really working hard on, kind of making a breakthrough with.
A testimonial, right? A key thing to get from customers, right? That they're happy enough to provide us with a testimonial of the product.
Yeah, and then we need to research what that specific segment needs and see if we can find a solution, or maybe meet a new product, new customer need in the market that we haven't, really had in the product.
The key thing to mention here, from a product leadership perspective, is that your job is to understand what are the most important objectives, right? The sequence of objectives that would lead us to where we want to be in the future, right? And that is a craft. It's not something that you come up with during one meeting. It's an ongoing craft that you practice as a product leader.
It's absolutely a craft, but it's also a disciplined way of having focused conversation in a product organization. Because imagine saying, should we focus on this, increase revenue per customer the next quarter, or should we work on reducing the problems in customer service, or should we tackle this new segment where we want to be successful? It's a choice of the focus, and then you have a shared focus for your product for a certain amount of time, right?
Exactly. Focus is the key, like giving clear objectives and choosing A over B, right? You need to be vigilant about your choices, right? That you're not doing certain things.
And not instead of building the feature X.
Yeah. All right. How do you create high alignment in an organization or in your organization? Please chime in and let us know. What do you think?
Yeah, and again, I think you probably have some great ideas and maybe even seen or maybe been a part of creating good alignment, or maybe you've seen some bad examples. So we're really curious to hear what you guys think.
Yes, please chime in. You might need to think for a second. That's okay.
How do we help people progress towards a shared goal, or understand what we're trying to do, right?
How do you create that context? Talk about why. Exactly. Like, what's the purpose? What are the key goals to achieve, and why are those goals important for the business? We got more people writing. Let's see. Communication and transparency. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, a key thing. The anti-pattern we see a lot from product organizations is that you don't have that transparency of the purpose. You have this sandwich happening. It's clear to the leadership team of where we should go, and then you have nothing, and then you have clarity in terms of what the teams are working on.
Yeah, and then there's just a big question mark. I don't know how many times I've had this experience when I talk to organizations. That's my job, right? Figure out what they're doing, what they're trying to get changed or get better. And you ask some people, and they have a very clear idea about what the product goals are. And then you talk to the rest of the organization, they're just kind of like, I think we're doing this, which is a very high level phrase or something,
Yeah,
right?
it leads to misalignment. You know, the teams working in different directions. So high alignment is really coupled to communication and transparency. So great, thanks for chiming in.
Why and how to measure. I like that one. Good.
Yeah. Northern Star, clear vision.
Yep.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about discovery and delivery.
Yep.
Okay, so discovery.
Yeah, so the word discovery, it's just a term we're using to kind of talk about this other part that we mentioned in the beginning, right? We want this team to take the responsibility and to understand customer needs and understand maybe if they have problems, right? What can be a fantastic, valuable thing for us to work on?
Yeah.
Which means you need to research, you need to find out, right?
And this is the main shift, or one of the main shifts in moving towards an empowered model, is that you need to spend more time in discovery, right? Teams are typically quite good at delivery with continuous integration, continuous continuous everything, whatever you.
We've become pretty good at that, and that's a good thing. But it's like having a great engine, like a Ferrari, but you're not very good at steering, right? We need driving practice, not just a great engine, right?
Yeah. And the fundamental aspect about discovery is learning, right? You're learning about what's the right problem and what's the right solution. And you do that mainly by prototypes and research.
So what we mean by the terms here, valuable means that the customer sees this as highly valuable, including willing to pay for it, right? A lot of times, oh, I know the customer has this problem, and you build a product, but nobody wants to buy it. Well, that's because that problem wasn't on the top 5 list of problems. It was 85, right? So they're not willing to pay for it, right? So we need to validate that we're willing to pay for it. Can they use it? Is it feasible? Means can we actually build a solution that meets the need? And then viable means, can we operate the business on this? Is it in alignment with compliance requirements? Things like this. Maybe it's a fantastic product that's going to have traction, but our organization can't sell it. We just don't have the, for example.
Yeah. Let's talk about delivery.
Well, this one I think we can shortcut. We know what this means.
You know this stuff.
Build things that work. Performance, scalable, reliable. We got this. This is not the talk for that.
Yeah. And you have this continuous aspect of working with discovery and delivery, right? So in discovery, you have objectives, goals that you want to achieve, and there are problems to solve for the business and the customers. And then you work with discovery, with prototyping to ensure, is it valuable, is it usable, etc.
But Marcus, I'm seeing something here. I'm seeing more prototypes in the purple reddish upper arrow, and I just see 2 things dropping down to delivery. What's going on?
Because you discard things in the process.
How
many things have you discarded in your teams over the last 2
How many ideas did you not follow through on? If the answer is 0, you're really not doing this, right?
Yeah.
And you're probably not really having a high level of innovation.
So you have to have a speed of learning, right? And the speed of learning is to meet customers on a daily basis, or meet stakeholders, show the prototypes, test things in production. And so you slice the prototypes to a small chunk, you bring it to market, and you learn something from the market, you bring it back into discovery, right? And this might sound like utopia, because you're not working like this. But what can you do as a first step to work more continuously with discovery, right?
Yeah, we have some answers for that.
We have some answers for that. Yeah.
It will. The second thing I want to get your attention to here is there's both delivery work and discovery work that's intermixed, right? It's not like let's do discovery work for 3 months, Marcus, right?
No.
Why not?
It's such an anti-pattern that I see across the team, or across teams and product organizations, is that you spend too much time in discovery. You have this analysis paralysis happening, right? Oh, no, we're doing discovery. Let's do discovery.
Yeah.
Let's do discovery by the book. And then you spend a lot of time doing user research, and then you have a tough time kind of deciding things. So, I mean, a key thing is to have this bias for action, or bias to move stuff into production, to test things. Because in discovery, you can never be 100% certain. You can be certain when you have something in production. And that's why it's key to take the prototypes that you create in discovery, slice them based on the riskiest things, and then bring them to market as a small experiment, and then get feedback and iterate based on the learning. And that's classic agile. I mean,
it should be agile, right?
Classic agile, right? Small, incremental, iterative, incremental things, right?
The point is here, customer collaboration. If you're like, we're so agile, I'm going to ask you one question. Did your team ever meet customers, or are they doing customer collaboration?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, there's more room for improvement, right?
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
So here's one idea then. Everybody on the product team gets exposed and gets some way of opportunity to work on both discovery and delivery.
But doesn't mean that everyone is involved all the time, right? That's an anti-pattern.
It's not necessary. What we're talking about here is giving everybody exposure for real customer indicators, right?
Yeah. So what are the latest things from our customer research? So I mean, just a tangible thing that we can recommend is that, okay, you've done some user research. So you had a UX designer, product manager meeting some customers, and then you play back the insights, but you let the team synthesize the insights. So you have one part of the team doing some things, but then you meet as a team to kind of align on what to do next.
So what happens in the team? What are some common things we need to do every day when we take on all these responsibilities? Well, it just means that somebody needs to go and figure out who we're going to interview. We're going to talk to customers, who we're going to talk to. We might have to figure out who's a good candidate and talk to them and ask them if we can have an interview for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Somebody needs to do that, right? Somebody needs to prepare and perform interviews. And then figure out, what does this mean? What do they say? What does that actually mean? What do they actually need? What are problems they're trying to solve? What's important for them, right? Sure. And then given that, well, which one of these problems are the ones we should focus on because they're valuable to them? And then selecting what we should try to solve, which probably is a subset, right? So that's one part. The second part is, well, how do we build a solution for this? We need to prototype. We need more than one idea, and we need some way of figuring out which one of them is the best one, right? And then building the solution, and then figuring out, did this make a difference? Are we creating some sort of impact? Is this good for the product? Is it good for the customer? Should we do more of this or just throw it out?
Yeah, exactly. And expectations is that, on you in the Power Team context is that you focus on learning and experimentation. You spend more time with discovery, so to understand the right product to build, because you're empowered to figure it out.
A couple of things to avoid. As Marcus talked, don't spend too much time. Make a decision fast. See that as something of a relief.
Yeah.
Right. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to become more certain.
And that creates engagement as well, right? Teams that actually put stuff in production, it creates this engagement. Like, oh yeah, we put this in production. We learned some stuff. That is also something to acknowledge.
Yeah, like the team in the story we just shared in the beginning.
Yeah. So if you would focus more on discovery in your team, in your context, what would be different?
Yeah.
What
would be different?
What's your answer?
Maybe you're doing parts of this, but maybe some of it is new, or maybe everything is new. Share something.
Satisfaction.
Oh my God, this is somebody who will. You would become more satisfied.
I empathize with that.
Yeah, it is. I think it is rewarding in a different way, because people know they're doing a good job. Whatever you do, you just do a good job, right? Even in in the delivery team, in the beginning, you do a good job, but it's more on the technical or execution side. But here's I know it's making a difference, right? Yeah. For somebody else.
Easier implementation. Why is it easier, Mathias?
I think it is. I think this is true, because you don't need to spend a lot of time explaining all the requirements, because people understand why we're doing it, so we can actually be part of creating the requirements, or the actual how to design it, right?
Yeah. Because you have less handoff. I mean, it's effective. Working another way might be more efficient, that you get more code produced. But in Empower context, you're getting the right code produced.
Yeah. Discard bad solutions early. I think this is fantastic, because usually it's like, well, we spent all this time on this, but it didn't pan out. I feel like we wasted our time, right? But it's not true, because you would have wasted so much more time if you actually built it and shipped it, right? Yeah. So that's different.
Exactly. So let's talk about key themes just briefly, because we touched upon this already.
Yeah. Keep the high pace going.
I mean, the first theme is to tackle product risks early. So it's risky. Now, what we mean by risk is that the risk of you building the wrong thing, the wrong product, right? And you have these 4 different risks that you need to tackle through using discovery techniques. And there are plenty of discovery techniques, and we'll give you some further reading later on. And then create products collaboratively, not sequentially. Don't have that relay race, handoffs all the time, right? Try to squeeze things together in terms of competencies and points of view. And then focus on results, not output. It's not enough to ship code, right? You need to produce a result for the business and for the customers.
It's really about moving the goalposts. I usually phrase it this way. Instead of saying the goalposts are output, deliver this feature or ship this code without bugs, the goalpost should be make a difference for the customer, move the needle for the business, right?
And so how do we get there? That might be a big question that you have right now. And we're going to show you some transitions or some kind of types of teams and the kind of transition that you should think about.
So this could be one organizational setup, right? We talked in the beginning, right? You have customers on the left side here, and then you have some sort of commercial. It could be sales, it could be marketing. Customers are people who are directly connected with customers. And then you might have a product organization that work together with commercial to decide what to do, and then people who build things, right? And we have handoffs here. The distance to the customers is fairly long, right?
That's a big disconnect. Here,
feature team organization. So imagine you're building something and that you're just shipping online. It's a product anybody can download as a consumer. You might have a very, design-oriented discovery team, right? They do design, they have an idea about what customers need and users.
And they hand over the prototypes.
But they do a lot of gold plating on the design, and then they hand it over, and then you ship it, right?
Yeah. An empowered team.
Yeah, and this is what we've mostly been talking about. Here we just kind of integrate all these multiple competencies in kind of one cohesive thing. We have shared responsibility for both understanding customer problems and needs and creating solutions and shipping them, right?
Yeah.
And making a real difference. It's the whole, it kind of looks like a startup, doesn't it, Marcus?
Yeah, mini startups, empowered mini startups. So what do you do?
Well, one thing you guys can do at home, in your own organization, what can we do to minimize the gap between the people who make or contribute to the product and the user who needs the product, for their needs?
Yeah.
What can we do to either do that or just kind of, shift the conversation to understanding why we're doing things and just kind of pushing it together, right? So how can we make this distance shorter? How can we make the handoffs less of instruction things and more like a conversation, or make sure we have a shared understanding? These are things I think we can all try doing, right?
Yeah. And the tangible thing is that expose engineers to customers or get POs involved in brainstorming or workshopping what you intend to build in delivery. I mean, you have your own creativity. So take a first small step to kind of minimize the gap.
All right, so here's a case we want to share. This is an organization I worked with for 2 years, together with first one of my colleagues for a long time, and then at the end a third colleague. So this is an organization in Sweden, northern Sweden. Fantastic organization, 100 employees, multiple products, more products than teams, and quite a bit of revenue, a lot of growth. And their challenge, what they wanted to do. They wanted to deal with a lot of challenges they had, and we ended up, in a transformation towards product teams. So in that transformation, they wanted to shorten the lead times from the customer needs to having a customer effect. This is their framing. A shared view of customer needs and product value. So we want all people who contribute to Popular Product to understand these things through transparency and alignment, which you guys added to the conversation, right? Communication and transparency. And the third, making sure we have the right conditions to have successful teams. So these are the goals. And they set off on a journey. The first things we did, we kind of helped them with a little bit of assessment of the starting position, and they chimed in. It's something we did together. People from the organization were given an opportunity to add and remove and co-understand the whole challenges they were facing and the situation they had. Formed a change leadership team, like a transition or a transformation team with representatives from the organization's top leadership team, including the CEO even. And then we aligned they aligned primarily, but what do they want to have in terms of effect goals for this transformation? outcomes. So these 3 effect goals that I just read. And then they started off on a journey, started initiatives, invited people from the organization to drive specific initiatives to attack different challenges, things they wanted to change. And they drove those initiatives, and then they ended up in a situation, okay, we know we have some way of working things, we need some skills, we want to work with discovery in a different way, much more, an enablement on the team level. We want to have a UX role that's different, closer to the business and closer to customers, things like this. And then they made the decision to say, we need organizational changes too. So we can organize around our goals, our infrastructure and architecture, but also our new way of working to enable that. So shifted a few roles, and they made the decision to make also that change at the end.
Could you say that these initiatives are change experiments?
Absolutely change experiments. And I want to emphasize that. The destination was absolutely not super determined, but the effect goals was important, right? But they didn't want, we drove experiments and initiatives to find a path to meet these effect goals. And they built their own solution through these initiatives and these organizational changes.
Just like you have a backlog in your product team, you can have the same mindset when driving change. That you have change experiments that you are connected to specific outcomes.
Yeah, it's almost as if there's a lot of similarities there, isn't there, Marcus?
Yeah. That's how we drive change, right? You want to achieve something in terms of outcomes, and then you have experiments, small steps that you take towards the goal.
And you validate if we're getting closer.
And you have this feedback loop, right? Are we moving in the right direction? Okay, maybe we need to shift focus.
What are the needs that this organization needs to address? What are the problems they're having? Let's address those through experiments. And then we understand we need to shift some mindsets, change the organization. Then, what happens later? We have a last slide here. Well, they succeeded very well. And this is from a presentation they did themselves. I didn't even make these slides. I asked if I could use them. And if you want to watch this presentation, we have a YouTube clip. It's in Swedish, if you understand Swedish. But one of the things, this is one of the goals, was to create these better conditions for team success. And the measurable they had a performance culture index that they had been using for a very long time, that measured both the conditions for performance for the individual at the team level, but also the human basics needs on belonging and feeling to have a good work environment where I can thrive and contribute and feel good at work and so forth. And their goal was to go from 53 to 75, and they completely knocked that out of the park with 88.
Yeah,
I think it was the biggest improvement they had ever measured for this index.
And that's the engagement that you get out of this, right?
Yeah, and we have even the CEO who thinks we have really good teams that know and work towards a common goal. They understand what affects, what the impact and outcomes that they're supposed to drive. And there's this calm confidence. It's high tempo, but it's calm confidence. And the atmosphere is completely different from, some time ago before they made this change.
Like you mentioned, it's on our YouTube channel, Crisp Agile Academy. If you want to dive into this case study, it's about 60 minutes or so.
Yeah. And the main theme here is more like, it's possible you can apply the same ideas, but you need your persistence over time, and you need to be clear about what your goals are, and just kind of work together with experiments over time, right?
Yep.
So what can we do more specifically on Monday? What could you guys try? So we have a few nuggets for you guys. 1, go out there and interview 3 customers.
Or one.
How fast can we interview 1 customer? Just do it, right? Ask them 6 questions.
In customer service, they talk to customers every day, all the time, right?
2nd, bring an engineer. Next time somebody in your organization is meeting a customer, just bring an engineer.
Right.
Try that.
Or end user, depending on your context.
Talk about the key problems to solve. If you're an organization, say, we need to ship feature X, we have promised this timeline, this deadline for this feature. Change the conversation to also be about the problems to solve and the needs of the customers and why.
Yeah. And if you're a product leader listening, think about the presentation that you held a couple of weeks ago talking about stuff, right? How much of the things were about solutions and how many things were about problems? And you might have a good answer to that. We'll give you an indication on what to do next.
And next time you talk about a roadmap, put a couple of problems in the roadmap, not just solutions.
Exactly. Create an outcome-based roadmap with key goals. Yeah.
Okay, the second, third or fourth one here. Try one discovery activity every sprint, or whatever planning rhythm you might have. It could be longer than a sprint. Just do one. And
Yes.
also phrase one hypothesis. We believe that the customer has this problem or need. We believe if we do this, we might, see some sort of good outcome, right?
Yeah.
Just write that down and see if you can figure out if it's true or not.
Yeah. And then the last one is the Spice Girls question.
The Spice Girl question.
It's from Stephen Bungay.
What you want, what you really, really want.
Exactly. It's a good mental model. It's kind of a catchy thing to think about. It's a useful question to bring to a stakeholder, right? What do you want? What do you really, really want?
Is it retention, or is it the margin per customer, or is it something else?
Yeah, because stakeholders, they come up with solutions often, right? And you can ask that stakeholder, okay, why do you want to build that solution? What metric do you want to move? And then you understand kind of a deeper meaning.
And maybe you can find out something fantastic. We need to shift the product to this different segment. Otherwise, we're just going to fizzle out.
Yep.
And then you can cluster around that challenge, right?
Yes. Okay, so that was it from us, I think, in terms of the presentation and a short summary.
Yeah, so the summary is the things on the left-hand side. If we can succeed at getting those in place, we can gain what's on the right-hand side. So multidisciplinary team, taking responsibility for results and end-to-end experience, right? We work with both discovery, or we discover or research and deliver the right product. That's also part of our job. And we tackle the product risks early. And again, risks, what if we build the wrong product and nobody cares?
Life
right?
is too short to build something no one needs, right?
No one
Ash
needs.
Maru, I think.
It's more fun to build something that people care about.
Yeah,
also, right?
exactly.
All right. It requires strong leadership. It requires a lot of communication, doing the homework, and a lot of teamwork. So, but if you do these things, you can get fantastic engagement because things matter to us, and it's fun to learn new things that if we can learn them, we know we can make a difference. We can get more innovation. More innovation means easier to get premium paid for products, right? And also drive those business results.
Yeah.
And we can get more money to organizations or more engagement, wherever you guys have as goals in your organization. And that can sustain us for a longer time.
Yeah, and we think this is the future, hands down.
All right, we're gonna shift. There's some books here: Empowered and Inspired by Mark Kagan, Holistic Product Discovery by Marcus here,
Yours
fantastic book, and also ex-colleague of ours, Martin. And we also have an Empowering Teams program. So if you're more into the training and development program part of it, check it out on our website. There's some things you can learn there.
Yeah, this is for companies specifically to recruit, 15, 20, 25 participants to go through cohort training, where we focus on strategy to action, product discovery techniques, and all the other ins and outs of empowered teams.
And of course, you want to connect with us. Let's get connected. Just connect with us on LinkedIn. Maybe we can, learn more about you guys as well.
Ask a question. We're here to help and connect with us.
All right. Thank you so much. We have a couple of short questions, and then we're going to go into the Q&A part of this.
Yeah, this is our product discovery.
Yeah, so very short.
Please give us your feedback. It will just take a few moments, and then we get to the Q&A part of the session, and we're going to pick some questions from the list. So, what did you appreciate the most about the webinar?
Hopefully something.
Yes.
2 people, fantastic. Obviously, we just really believe in this, because I mean we've seen it be helpful for people, and I think it's more.
We drank the Kool-Aid.
We drank the, yeah, but
we've seen it firsthand.
It's more than the Kool-Aid, right? It's more. It really works.
Kool-Aid I'm talking about, like seeing that glow in people's eyes when they're like, "Oh, this is the right thing."
Yeah. It makes me feel good about my job as well.
Yes. Okay, the next question. How could the webinar be improved? So just shortly,
anything,
things that we could improve this webinar for future audiences. Give that 30 seconds. Great. And then return on time invested.
Yeah.
How was your time spent this afternoon?
Yeah, was this worth kind of hanging out with us and listening to us talking for a bit? And
did you learn something new?
Yeah, and keep in mind, we're going to have the Q&A as well afterwards. So if you have that question, I want to definitely answer this question. We will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's move on. Yeah, to the Q&A.
All right, first question. How does this organization connect and so forth? Maybe, do we have the person who asked this question still on the call? If so,
would you like to jump on the stage?
Yeah, if so, just turn on your microphone and video and explain this question to us.
Hi, yeah, it was me asking the question.
Thank you, Reza.
Hello.
Yeah, so what I wondered, yeah, I guess, I mean, imagine if we have a large organization with several teams working with different maybe parts of the customer journey or different types of customers, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Then how would sort of such a model fit? Because imagine you have then sort of normally a funnel of or requests coming from different parts of the organization to a certain feature team, let's say an email team or whatever software. Yeah, I guess you understand here.
You want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, I mean, the key thing is that you have a metric for each team, right? If you think about the funnel, you have metrics for each stage of the funnel, like activation, retention, engagement, whatever words are important. And then you can connect that. So activation, okay, that 90% of customers are activated within 7 days, or 87%, whatever it is that you want to move that metric. So that's an outcome, that's a problem to solve, right? And to organize around the value stream is a good practice in our book, right? To understand the value stream. And if you're doing kind of a change journey together in terms of looking at the team topologies, a good practice is to map up the value stream or the multiple value streams that you provide, and to understand how do teams fit into that context. And then as the next step is to understand, okay, what are the key metrics for each of the parts of the journey? And those are the briefs or the problems to solve for the teams. Does that answer your question?
I have a few additions. So, for example, you mentioned the email team. What's the problem to solve? Is it sending emails, or what are the emails supposed to
convert to
what's this?
the product?
What's the Spice Girls question for why do we send emails, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it is to make sure that the customer knows that their order is in a, I don't know what you guys, let's say it's a e-commerce scenario, right? You send the email so the customer understands that their order has been completed. So we want to kind of convert, it's part of the customer experience to know that I have my order in a certain state. So we're sending emails to inform the customer and enable them to contact us and things like this. So maybe we can reframe the team's purpose and give the team a different objective. Maybe it's the order management team or order communications team instead of the email team. It's just a food for thought, right? Yeah. So the Spice World's question could be one way.
Is that helpful, Reza?
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Because usually when you have a customer journey, right? Let's say you have a big product and a big, big organization. You have different teams with infrastructure and software that supports all the touch points in the operational part of running the business, right? So, but it's all part of a customer journey. So you can decompose that journey and find those metrics and those ways. How does this team contribute to the full customer journey or support that the business is fruitful, right?
I mean, a good kind of mental model for that coming from team topologies is that you have experienced teams responsible for the customer experience, whether that's email or products or services. And then you have enabling teams, enabling those products and services and experiences to be created. So they could be internal API teams or things of that nature that support the other teams.
Yeah. So give that email team a problem to solve or a customer need or some way of knowing if they're moving the needle for the customer journey.
Yeah.
And that could be a way to make progress.
So yeah, is it an enabling team or an experienced team? That could be a useful question.
All right.
All right.
I think we'll move to the next question here.
Yes.
Dejana, do we have Dejana here? Thanks, Teresa, for your question.
Yes, hi.
Yeah.
Could you, yeah, there you are.
Yes.
Fantastic. Hi.
Hi.
So
So,
just explain your question to us.
so I'm thinking, what is the best way to get customers and empower teams to like more closer and keep up with it and not do it as a one-time thing?
Yeah, to do it continuously. It's to have a cadence in terms of exposure to customers. A good practice is every sprint or every week to have user Fridays or something like that. So you book 2-3 user interviews or customer interviews. And then you kind of set the agenda based on the product that you're building right now or intend to build, right? So it might be evaluative research. So you have a prototype or that you want to test, you want to understand the usability of that product, or generative. So you want to understand the problem space more with that customer segment or whatever it is. So to have a cadence and a rhythm, and then creating that exposure of the insights to that team or to other teams. And a good practice relating to that are discovery reviews, or yeah, whatever you want to call them, but to expose the learnings that you have acquired during this sprint or this.
Sharing the lessons learned. I'll share another example of things you can try. Have a discovery backlog.
Yeah.
Right? Do we have one? Or is it more, oh, let's just try to do some discovering this quarter out of the blue? Or is it more like we actually need to continuously learn stuff, and there's more than one thing we need to learn about our customer needs or problems that's going to help us inform? So for example, if churn is our problem, we for this quarter, our objective is to reduce the churn with half. Then we need to why do people leave our product? Maybe we don't know. Maybe you can decompose that into a couple of different smaller problems to solve or research activities, and you tackle them one by one. And you might need a couple of different team iterations to really know the answer, and then figure out what to do, and then do that thing so you can actually drive that impact. So I think that's more, you can be more disciplined and always systematically having something we need to learn, and then having some sort of shared rhythm, either at the team level or at the bigger level, depending on how big your organization is. Right?
We're talking about discovery backlogs. It's basically a question, right? That you form as a team. So one thing that you could do as a team is to have a workshop, like a half an hour or an hour, where you just brainstorm key questions that you have right now related to the product. And that will give you an indication of what you need to learn. Right? You need to talk to customers, the customer service, or you need to prototype or do something. So that's kind of a basic first step that you could do, to just talk about learning, not just delivery, depending on your context.
There are many tricks depending on what you guys has as a starting point. The end goal, you want to have a team that just continuously is doing this, but if you're not there, start somewhere. That's our main message.
Yeah. Last thing I just want to mention is a good practice is to talk about product risks with your team. Just these are the different risks. Do we have risks right now with the product that we intend to build in this sprint? And to have that meaningful conversation or post-it note exercise or something like that relating to the product.
Yeah, it's usually something that the product leaders need to be in on, right? Because they're the ones that you can't say, oh, well, question everything all the time. It's more about an honest look at your own biases. How certain are we that if we put investment of time and resources on the team level on this thing, is it going to make a difference? And increasing that certainty through discovery work. Right? Yeah. That's all what it is. Not to 100%. It's never going to be 100%.
So, I mean, you might think about the risk, the term risk, like, oh, that's boring. That's something that a project manager talks about or somebody in finance. But it's actually not something that's boring. It's key for product discovery, right? Because every risk that you talk about, you have a next step to learn using a discovery technique.
But you know, when I hear the word risk, Mark, it sounds like this, I'm about to fail.
Yeah.
Right? It's like this. It's like stepping on minefields, right? Why is that not the feeling why is it not like that?
It's not like that, because if you flip a risk, there's an opportunity to learn. So it's kind of a mindset that you tackle risks, and it should be a good practice in any team to tackle risks upfront.
Just
That's a good
dealing with
answer.
ambiguity and opportunity and just learning stuff,
And it
right?
builds psychological safety in your team because you could talk about the uncomfortable things like the risks. And that might be underlying, like underneath the surface in your team. You're building this thing. Okay, why are you building that? What are the risks?
Yeah, and the thing is, the story we started with in the beginning there, the team that, you know, the engineer in the canteen and in the lunch break, right? He wasn't scared about the risk. He's more like, we now understand things we didn't understand. That feels good. You know, I want more of that. So you can turn it around into something very creative and engaging, right?
Yeah, and you do that as a team, and that creates engagement, like we talked about.
Okay, thank you, Dejana, for your question.
Yes,
we
thank
have
you, Dejana.
Tobias. Are you still with us? Maybe Tobias.
Yes, hi.
Oh, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, sorry, it might be a bit of like background noise. I have one unhappy camper just come home from kindergarten. So
Okay,
Yeah.
you're good. You're good.
All right, good. So my question is relating towards like if you have a sales organization,
Yeah.
that sells basically on features. So it basically they start selling features to our potential customers like early on. How is it possible, you think, to implement like an empowered product team's way of working in that organization?
So I can share from the story we actually shared, right? That you and I work on. It's important to have understanding for what we should attempt to move in this direction at the level where there's skin in the game, like we talked about, right? So in the story, we had CPO and CTO. They both wanted to become more customer-centered, right? Including connecting with customers. So there needs to be some sort of awareness and support for attempting this at grand scale, right? So for example, if the salespeople are the ones who make decisions on what features to put in the product, then they are the product management team.
Yep.
Right? That's in effect what they actually are doing. And that's usually not the good setup for building great products at all.
No.
Because usually it depends on how your organization is structured. Sometimes sales organizations are responsible for driving revenue, which usually leads to a bias towards if we have more feature, we will get the next sale, and it becomes very short-term oriented, and they're thinking you can fall into the trap of thinking only about the next customer, the next lead, instead of looking at the whole market, understanding where the customer problems are moving, not where they used to be, where I usually used to have be able to close deals, not looking for more customers like that were in the backseat in history. We're looking at the trends. Where are the new needs? What are the top unsolved problems out there, and putting solutions for those problems into the product.
Yeah.
This requires a different mindset at the product leadership level, right, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You need to bridge the gap between product and sales. And sales are really good at kind of being attuned to what's going on in the market. What are customers wanting? What are they talking about? What do they value? And that gives you really good insights in terms of what to focus on, right? But it's not the whole answer, because it might be short-sighted, like you mentioned, Mathias. But to your question, how do you implement it? And I think the key thing is to bridge that gap through specific tactics or techniques. And one technique that we tried in the case study that we talked about before is that we had a customer discovery program, and we leveraged sales to recruit customers. So sales were exposed to customer problems, and they referred customers to product and engineering to for us to talk to.
I can tell a story about that. I mean, we have this rhythm of planning for both discovery work and delivery work, and this transition and this shift in mindset we talked about on the product team and engineers, right? That we just shared in the beginning. And what happened is at these events, they also shared their insights from the previous weeks. We worked on finding out this stuff and learn about this, and these are our insights. And what happened was the executive leadership team one day just showed up at one of these events, and they got so excited because they got engaged by the insights and say, oh, that's great, that's interesting news, we could do this. And And I remember one time the I think it was head of marketing or head of sales marketing in continental Europe. He was there. He was like, "This is amazing," and the team was trying to plan their next period and say, we don't have access to any customers to interview for this. We've been trying for weeks. And he was like, "I can help you with that," and it happened, right?
Yeah.
So it's about shifting the conversation. Can happen through just showing some examples of customer insights. That's one example. The second is if we can increase the probability that new features are successful, then you will get a product that's naturally more attractive and you wouldn't have to work as hard to close the deals.
Yeah.
So trying to find the middle ground there could be one way.
I mean, a good way to think about it perhaps is also the proactive or reactive way of working in product management. A reactive way is that we get something from sales. Oh my God, we need to build it. Being proactive is to talk to sales, talk to customer service, talk to the CEO, talk to other stakeholders in the building, do market research, talk to customers, and to understand how to connect the dots between these different people and these different insights. So one recommendation for organizations that are sales driven to move more towards an empowered operating model is to build that trust with sales. If they're the most vocal, right? How could you bridge that gap with sales? How could you get closer to sales? How can you expose them to insights? Can you show prototypes to them? Can you get them involved somehow? And to nurture that relationship, because it takes small steps to kind of get started. I hope that answers the question.
It's a very big topic, but it's the short version of the answer we have here.
Complex topic, but excellent question.
Hopefully that helped a little bit, Tobias.
All right, thanks.
Okay, no access to the mic, says Anonymous. How do you lead and try to make a change upwards? Our steering group are not outcome problem oriented. We're often given solutions. I think this is a common scenario, right? I can take a stab at this. You have build this solution within this time frame, and that is what you should be doing, right? And I keep on doing that, but also try to change the way you talk. What can we do to come closer to the customers? Not 3 steps, but 2. What can we do to share customer insights with our teams? What can we do to talk more about problems? Also, ask question about why. What is the measurement? What's the Spice Girls question for this solution? We can try to understand and connect, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing we can.
And the main thing I would say is also to co-create, to bridge the gap with these leaders, right? To invite them into workshops, to pick their brains, because they like every stakeholder likes to talk, right? They like to share their thoughts and ideas. Leverage that. It creates this psychological aspect that you feel involved, and then you start to build trust. And then if you see that team that you talked to in that workshop 2 weeks ago, they have a prototypes to show that's really close to what I was thinking, then you build that trust. You build that trust over time. And then connecting to what Mathias talked about, try to uncover why that solution is important. What goal are you trying to achieve? And to also bridge that gap by kind of peeling the onion in terms of their solutions. Yeah.
Maybe send the video recording of this webinar to them. Maybe that can help.
Yeah, maybe.
All right.
Let's see if
do we have more questions? If you have a question, but you haven't typed it in, you can also type it into the Zoom chat here. We'll try to get to that question as well. Any more questions? I don't think we have any more questions. So
jump in.
I think it's time to wrap it up, Marcus. Unless,
yeah.
All right.
Thanks for listening. Really enjoyed the questions and the engagement from the audience. Hope you learned a few new things.
Super cool. Thank you for being here. We'll put the video up in on the YouTube website or our YouTube channel. Crisp Agile Academy.
We can also email link.
I'm probably going to email the link to everyone on this who were signed up. So thanks a lot.
And share it to a colleague. Spread the word.
Yeah. And again, if you have questions, connect with us.
Yeah.
Goodbye, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.